everybody, to Redhead Rewatch. We are doing episode 2 of season 1 of One Tree Hill today. The places you have come to fear the most. Air date 9/30/2003. Jillian, take it away with the description.
After failing in his first varsity basketball game, Lucas decides to quit the team. Meanwhile, Nathan and Peyton's faltering relationship continues to weaken as Peyton tires of Nathan's poor treatment of Lucas.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, so today I'm joined by Jillian to recap and talk about episode 2 of season 1. So let's jump right in. I love that we finally got the theme song. We got the intro. It started. Gavin DeGraw, he's featured twice in this show. Obviously, I Don't Want to Be the main theme song, and then Belief at the end, which plays multiple times throughout the show. Love that song. The music in this episode was so good. So good. But yeah, I love, we get the intro, the iconic river court dribbling scene. I love that we saw the boys, the basketball boys. And like Jimmy was there, like it was Jimmy, Mouth, Skills, Junk. Fergie wasn't there yet, so I'm guessing Fergie takes the place of Jimmy then later on.
Yeah, I guess.
We see a lot of Jimmy in this episode, and I'm really bummed that like they didn't keep him in throughout.
Right. They kind of just like forgot about him and then brought him back up in season 3 when he, what happened.
So I feel like that would have been a really cute, like him and Mouth going through together, like doing the podcast and doing the, sports broadcasting and all that stuff. So I was a little bit bummed. I wish we would have like seen more of Jimmy other than, I believe, just episode 1 and 2, and then when he comes back in season 3. But yeah, I feel like this was also just a perfect display of Dan just being like the absolute worst. Like just the worst father, being on Nathan, like Nathan acting out like 3 different times throughout the episode because of how Dan's treating him.
Right.
The Keith and Karen scenes, loved.
I know.
I also thought it was really relatable. Karen, talking about I don't want to go to the games, like just like
I was gonna say that too, like that scene of her like not wanting to go back because it would bring back all those memories for her.
Especially like high school in a small town, like nobody really leaves, like everybody knows what happened, everybody knows her past, let alone like probably all the Dan memories are really in that auditorium, which she says throughout the episode, and like we will come to hear the whole full story, but I just thought that was like really relatable and something that, again, when we first were watching it as 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, we don't think about these things that like now we think about being older and looking back and like rewatching. I love the Haley quote when her and Keith are going to the game where she's like, yes, Lucas's father / her ex-boyfriend / my wrist if I hear this story again, let's go. Like I love like Haley's little like quirky moments. But that's one of my favorite Haley quotes. I don't know why, I just think it's so funny.
Yeah, it's relatable, and it's like, as a person that's small town, I'd be like, all right, we all know.
Been there. / my wrist if I hear this story again. I also laugh so hard when Tim is doing the chant going out of the locker room, and he's like, Raymond's gonna what? Then we're gonna what? what, Ravens? Like, it's just, I don't know why Tim doing it made me laugh so hard, but I thought that that was really funny. Um, Ew. Lucas, when he goes, nice legs to Peyton, vomit.
Yeah.
Like, so gross.
Also, here's a gross thing, but maybe it's just because, like, I don't know. But when Nathan is like painting Peyton's toenails,
Oh my God, I have that written down.
the
I
bedroom
have that
talk
written down.
off, like, I get,
Why was
like,
this shown? Why was this shown?
I have no idea, but like, and another thing that made me mad with that scene was how he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna quit the team, I'm gonna quit the team," and he's like, "No, really, I am," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, let's both do it, like that's great," and he goes, "Are you
He
kidding?"
goes, yeah, we're gonna quit.
He's like, "I was
It's your
joking."
idea.
Literally, then what?
Like,
What?
so this takes us to the next scene too. So, like, first of all, I think it's so weird and stupid that they had Lucas playing poorly
Yeah,
at his
like his
first game.
yeah,
Like, they have such a build up and such a big deal is made that he made the team. He
right.
played against Nathan and he beat him. Like, he's on the team. It's a whole ordeal that happened. To have this big build up and then have him play crappy, like, I just thought it was so stupid. And like,
Uh,
nothing else needed to be added for dramatic effects. Like, we have enough drama. Like, I just don't understand why they had him playing poorly. I just thought it was so dumb. Um, and just Nathan and Peyton scenes in general, like any and all Nathan and Peyton romantic scenes are awkward.
they don't have chemistry, and it just feels very forced, and it's super weird. And also, like every makeout session it shows, it just looks awkward. Like they
It's
look
so
like
awkward and
I don't know.
forced. And like when they're making out in the car, first of all, great song, and I'll go through the songs in a little bit. Love the song, hate the scene. Like, the scene was so cringy. And then, like, why is Nathan's go-to saying put some ice on it? Like they're making out and then he's like talking about Lucas and then he's like, oh, are you into him? And she's like, I don't know, like, do you think I'm into him when I'm trying to make out with you, but you keep talking about him? And he's like, put some ice on it, Peyton. Like, why does he say that? That's such a weird phrase. But like,
It's
they're also, it's just so uncomfortable.
yeah, it's weird. Their scenes just make me cringe.
um yeah, like any and all scenes in this episode, the painting of the toes scene, it's so gross in general and weird. And then he's like, oh, you have like the he's like, you have the nastiest toes, girl.
Like yeah, and I'm like
They look like fingers. Like, ew. And then but I do laugh when she
how
goes,
she was
then focus on the middle one. Like, that one is funny. But then it goes into they're back at school. And I would love to get into this because they're in English class, which I understand we're trying to have all the characters in the same scene. So, of course, all of them are in the same English class, which
right.
I believe it's the next episode or maybe a couple of episodes later. Then all of a sudden they're in English class and Brooke's in that class, but not Peyton or Nathan. But anyway, we are always only shown English class in One Tree Hill. And they're always trying to do some sort of assignment that like ties into like the quote or like,
Right.
whatever. And it just would never happen.
Right. When they're like, what's one word to describe someone in your class? Like no teacher would say that. And then like
It,
you'd go to rebuttal Lucas. Like that's weird.
it
Just
would never be allowed. It has not, like, and then like later on in the episode, obviously he's like, well, to avoid a full out brawl, like just write down one word that you like want out of your future or something. Okay, why wasn't that the assignment?
yeah, it was really weird.
Like, no teacher in their right mind would have one student talking about another student out loud in front of the whole class. And like, of course, it's gonna like start a conflict. You know what I mean? Like, so I thought that whole thing was just so stupid to orchestrate that fight. Like, they could have orchestrated a fight a different way, you know? Um, but yeah, especially in like season 1 and 2, this specific English teacher with his English class, like the assignments that they're given, I'm like, this doesn't even have anything to do with what you'd be learning in English, you know?
Right.
And that's something that always irritates me in just the unrealistic depiction of high school. I get it's a show and whatever, but like I think we could try a little bit harder, you know? Um Also the Brooke and Peyton scene where they're like sitting in Peyton's room listening to music. And because I think that's the next scene then. It's so 2000s. Like
Yeah.
Brooke's hair, what they're wearing, flipping through the magazine, like what they're listening to. And then Brooke's like, have you heard the new Beyonce?
Yeah, I know.
And then she's like, I know you're all Gwen Stefani. I'm a badass. Like,
And she's
it's
like
just,
not a badass.
yeah, it's so 2000s. And like the song that's playing is so funny. And it's so funny too. Like, finally, we get to see Brooke in this episode. Like, this is the first Brooke episode. Um, and it's so funny seeing her whole monologue in that scene because it's like not Brooke. Like, she's like, yeah, like, hopefully I'll just, go to college and join a sorority and then like meet a rich guy and marry him and like live off his money. And then she's like, hopefully I don't get fat. Like, first of all, that scene did not age well.
Yeah.
And like Brooke, that's like not, it's just so wild to see where Brooke started and like where she ends up, you know?
But, oh, I saw a post online, and this is what is crazy to me is that a lot of our favorite movies and shows in the early 2000s were so fat shaming. And that was what, like, you didn't realize it then because it was like, oh, I need to drink a Diet Coke, or like, I can't have any carbs today or I'll gain 3 pounds, like Mean Girls, right?
Mm.
No, and all these other movies with these things that like the girls say, like, oh, well, like bring it on, the girl who like just gained some weight in her legs, and it was like a whole thing, and called her like a cow. Like in the early 2000s, like being fat was like an insult, and like you had to be skinny. And that's one thing I like didn't pick up on until I got older, and I was like, wow, that's really messed up that they're like, oh, I'm gonna drink water because like, and I just feel like that's how the
Yeah.
early was. They're
Well, I
like fat.
think too, what it is like it was just that was how society was, that was how the times were. Like,
Which
every
is why,
single movie or show with females in it,
right.
they talked about dieting, not eating, exercising, not getting like it was a whole ass thing. Um that it just isn't, that way anymore. Thank God. I mean, to an extent it still is, but like not like in the early 2000s, every single movie and show had some sort of talk about that. Like, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, every like diss was like to a girl, from girl to girl, was like about being fat. And it's like, okay, whatever,
Yeah, but that's why I think like when we watch it back now, we look back on it and we're like, wow, like Brooke would never say that. But also like because we've seen the evolution of One Tree Hill and Brooke throughout the years, like obviously Brooke Davis in season like 5 or 4 wouldn't say,
Mm-hmm.
So I think for us, we're like, Brooke said that.
And they do the like zero is not a size. Like, especially with like Brooke and Rachel, like that's all their, you know,
The bad.
it's all about like being fat
I
or
know. I
like being ugly or like a whore. Like,
get
you
into Rachel.
know. I also thought it was really funny when Nathan kicks Peyton out of the car and she's like, that CD was really hard to find. It was an import. Like the pre streaming of music is just so funny. Like the CDs and like downloading Frostwire and like importing CDs. Like it's so funny to look back on at like that time period.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the Peyton and Nathan scenes are all cringy and gross. Um, Also, when they fight, and it's so crazy to see like how Karen reacts and talks to Lucas and how Dan reacts and talks to Nathan. Like Karen's like, this isn't you. Why are you fighting? Why sink to his level? You know what I mean? I know it might be hard and he might be horrible, but like, don't sink yourself down to him. And Dan was like, well, did you win?
Yeah.
Oh, you're fighting about a girl. I thought at least fight about something important. Like, he's
Yeah.
just the worst.
Yep.
But I also, so then, also, I love Whitey in this episode. Like, shout out Whitey. It's just classic Whitey stuff. Like, and when Lucas comes in to talk to him and he's like, I can't stand up because every time I do, someone's kicking me in the ass for having you on this team now. Sit down. Like, he's like the Red Foreman of One Tree Hill. Like, it's so, and like his accent and how he talks is so funny. Um, but I love all of the Whitey scenes. I also love when Dan comes in and talks to Whitey. Like, I feel like you start to get a real sense, and like Dan telling Nathan like what happened at the state championships, and I feel like you're starting to really get the backstory of like Dan and like how he is and what happened, and I thought it was cool to kind of peek into him and Whitey's relationship a little bit as well. Um, but and we get so much Jake Jagelski in this episode.
I love Jake, and then he's in Lucas's corner and is like, "Hey man, like I
I
love it."
know. I love him so much. I love the sticking up for Lucas with Tim and Nathan. Like no one else is around and like Lucas isn't even around. And he's like, you guys are pathetic. Like, leave him alone, whatever. The book that he gave to Lucas, like Jake Jagelski is Lucas 2.0. Jake is Lucas without the douchebag elements. Am I right? Like I love him so much, and I love that he was just like really shown a light in this episode.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Jake's the best. He's the best character. Excuse me. And like I think my overall general takeaway from this episode is like I can't take James Lafferty seriously as a bad boy. Like I just the faces, like the way that he like I just and I think it's because I think too when you're on certain teams or like certain characters or things like that in shows, it really depends on when you started watching the show.
Right.
Like the first episodes that you watch, like when you jump in.
Right.
Because the first episodes that I watched were in season 3. And like season 3 is my favorite. I'm Team Brooke. Obviously love Nathan and Haley. But I also love Jake and Peyton. But like, so that's why when I finally got the DVDs and went back and started watching from episode 1, I was like, first of all, confused. And second of all, was like so hard for me to buy Nathan and Peyton being together and Nathan being bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like when he shows up at the river court and like he says all that crap to Lucas and like, it's so weird. But yeah, and Dan's just really gross throughout the whole thing.
Second that.
But we do get but then too, it's like then Peyton comes, like they're fixing his car. I love the Keith Lucas scene in the shop where they're fixing her car and he's giving him advice. Then Peyton comes in and she's so bitchy. Like, she's so rude for like no reason.
Yeah.
Um, and they talk about in the like in Drama Queens that after episode 2, everybody hated Peyton so much that that's why in like the episodes, I don't know, around episode like 7, 8, 9, 10, they start like giving you more of her backstory and like diving into her story more to like make you feel bad for her so that people weren't hating her as much because she was just so like angsty and like rude and for no reason.
Yep.
And like it literally shows a scene where she's just like ripping the art off her walls, like, you know? Um and she's like, those are my sketches, like those are personal, like they were sitting in your open car.
Yeah, bye.
Um but yeah, and then I just like love Whitey in this episode. Like he has the scenes with Dan, he has the scenes with Lucas, he has the scenes with Keith. Um yeah, Nathan painting Peyton's toes is like the biggest ick and cringe to me. I think the scene where Haley and Lucas are like talking about their porn names is really funny.
Yes.
Kind of random though.
Very.
But I love Haley's hair in that scene. I
Yeah.
love how they did her hair. Um, and then Haley says to Lucas at the end, it doesn't matter, like uniform, no uniform, on the court, on the river court. Like, I know it's never going to change the type of guy you are. Like,
Foreshadowing.
yet it does.
Yeah,
It
right.
completely changed the type of guy that he is. Um, but yeah, and then it shows like them getting ready for the game at the end, and like Dan's like, "Come on, Nathan," da, 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 like saying all this stuff to him, like harassing him, and it's just like, oh my god. Um, and then, Dan goes up to Lucas. He's like, "Hey, son, give this to my boy for me." Like he's just so gross. And when he says to Whitey, "I hear Karen's son."
Yeah.
Karen's son, and Whitey's like, "Oh, Karen's son, like, ew." Also, it really, and like they talk about this in a soonish episode where Lucas talks about changing his name. I don't understand why Karen would have named him Scott.
Yeah. Like, why wouldn't she just give him his last name, Rowe, if Dan wasn't in the picture and abandoned her and her child?
Yeah, because then it's like not only if you know like Dan's not going to be in his life, Dan's abandoning him or whatever, you're going to be in this small town. Also, that's like really, I feel like inconvenient for the mom because then all the kids are like, oh, Miss Scott, like, you know what I mean? Like, because
Mm,
that's his last name, like, why wouldn't you want you two to have the same last name?
right.
Like, I just think that that's so weird because, like, when she was talking about the fight, she was like, yeah, they said I have two Scott boys, I could take my pick. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, why did she name him Scott?
I agree.
But yeah, I really love the Karen and Lucas scene though. The second one where they're on the porch. It's so real and like she's basically just telling him like, you know, this is why it's hard for me to go to the games, why I didn't go. She's like, I hate that you have to hear things like this. She's like, but I don't want to lie to you. Like I feel like it was just
Very genuine. And it was like just like a conversation that like a parent should have with their child when in a situation like that. And I think she handled it and did it so well, knowing
and
that
we
you have
get
like,
so much of that with Karen and Lucas throughout. Like she's just such a good mom and like their communication and the way that she talks to him about things, I feel like is so beautifully depicted. Um, and just so, I mean, it's so good, such good acting. Like, and I feel like her, Moira, who plays Karen, and Chad, who plays Lucas. I feel like they just have such good chemistry in those scenes, and they bounce off each other so well. Like they act so well together. And then we get the "Your art matters. It's what got me here today."
Right.
I mean, I do like that. I do like the quote. But yeah, I don't know. So we get that iconic quote of One Tree Hill. And yeah, I mean, the iconic Echo Vertical Horizon song was in this. We're gonna hear that more a few times, I think, in the next couple seasons. Love it. So 2000s, so iconic. The American Analog set, Get Up Kids, Overdue. The music was just on fire this episode. And then ending with Gavin DeGraw, Belief. Like, that song is so deep, dramatic, emotional. And Lucas is playing good again. All is right in the world.
Yep. His art is what got him there.
Yeah, because her art's what got him there. But yeah, overall, I mean, I'm glad we got introduced to Brooke and Jake. I mean, not introduced to Jake, but like got more of Jake. And you can see that they're starting to really dive into all the character stories and relationships. So I thought episode 2 was pretty good. I liked it. I'd give it about an 8 out of 10.
The 7 just the toe scene.
Yeah, bless you. So let's do I do want to be, I don't want to be. You go first.
Okay. I do want to be Haley because she's so cute and funny and quirky, and her outfits and everything was on point this episode. Yeah, so I do want to be Haley. I don't want to be Nathan because I don't want to be painting Peyton's toes.
So I would say I do want to be, I guess, Jake Jagelski, like just prime perfection in this episode. And I'm gonna second that and say I don't want to be Nathan. Number one, because he's cringe in this episode. Between the Peyton and him making out scenes and him painting her toenails, it's a no-go.
Yeah.
For me on that. But all right, that concludes episode 2. So our next episode we're gonna cover is gonna be episode 3. Are You True? All right, so stay tuned. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Catch you next time.
Go ahead, rewind.